Good day and welcome to our daily news roundup on Atlantic TV. I'm Michael Obafio. Here are our top stories. Federal government warns 17 states of flood risks. NNPP marks a placeholder president submission to INEC. And Nigeria External Reserve hits $52 billion United States dollars, says CBN Governor Cardoso. And over 140 dead, missing in refugee boat tragedy of Mauritania. And talking sport, Flying Eagles arrive in Cote d'Ivoire for Waffle B Championship. Now to the news in full. The Nigerian Hydrological Service Agency has issued a 7-day flood advisory, warning that 17 states face a medium risk of flooding between July the 21st and July the 27th due to rising river levels across the country. Now, the affected states include Adamawa, Bauchi, Benue, Borno, Edo, Gombe, Imo, Jigawa, Kaduna, Kano, Kebbi, Nasarawa, Niger, Plateau, Taraba, Yobe, and Zamfara states. The NHSA says Federal River Monitoring Station has exceeded warning levels, increasing the risks of flooding in nearby communities. The agency says Bauchi has the highest exposure with more than 1,800 communities, schools, health facilities, and markets identified as vulnerable. It has urged emergency agencies and state government to activate response plans, relocate residents in flood-prone areas, and pre-position relief materials. NIHSA also advised residents to avoid flooded roads and waterways, clear blocked drainage system, and monitor official flood advisories. The warning follows early alert by both the agency and the Federal Ministry of Environment over the increased risks of flooding across several states. The Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, NIMASA, has begun a review of ship and port security protocols aimed at strengthening safety and preventing security breaches at Nigerian ports. Under the reviewed measures, all vessels entering Nigeria water must submit their security-related pre-arrival information at least 72 hours before the arrival. The required details include vessel name, port of registry, IMO number, and destination port facility. The master says ships and port facilities will jointly enforce tighter security measures, including access control, surveillance of restricted and berthing areas, secure cargo handling, baggage screening, and continuous security communication. The agency warns that providing false or incorrect information could attract sanctions, including delays, denial of port clearance, enhanced inspection, and possible prosecution under Nigerian maritime security laws. Away from that, talking politics, the new Nigerian People's Party says it has uploaded a placeholder presidential candidate to the Independent National Electoral Commission nomination portal ahead of the 2027 general election, describing the move as being in line with electoral guidelines. Now, the party also announced that its original logo has been restored on the INEC portal. National Chairman Mr. Mayo Agbo said the development confirms the legitimacy of his National Working Committee and marks a victory in the party's leadership dispute. Agbo said the NNPP has completed the upload of 355 National Assembly candidates, including placeholders across the 36 states and the FCT. He, however, declined the review, or rather revealed the identity of the placeholder presidential candidate. Now, the party says the upload of governorship and state house of assembly candidates are ongoing and will complete before the August 8th deadline. It also called on Nigerians, especially youth, women, and professionals, to support its preparations for the 2027 elections. Still talking politics, chieftain of the People's Redemption Party, Yakubu Kingsley, has called on political parties and aspirants to conduct peaceful campaigns ahead of the 2027 general election, urging leaders to put Nigerian interests above personal ambition. Kingsley appealed to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and other presidential hopefuls to caution their supporters against hate speech, ethnic and religious division, and inflammatory rhetorics. He stressed that elections should not be treated as a do-or-die affair, but as a democratic process guided by respect of the rule of law. He also urged the Independent National Electoral Commission, security agencies, the media, civil society group, our religious and traditional leaders to remain neutral and professional throughout the electoral process. The PRP chief then further called on Nigerians to pray for peace, unity, and stability ahead of the election, urging citizens to reject political bitterness and work together to safeguard the country's democracy. On business, the federal government says its expanding access to equipment and lensing will help boost agricultural productivity, strengthen food security, and empower youth, or rather young Nigerians, to build sustainable agri-businesses. Now, speaking at the 2026 Agriculture, Youth and Technology Nigeria Challenge in Abuja, the Equipment Lensing Registration Authority said affordable lensing will enable young entrepreneurs to achieve tractors, or rather acquire tractors, irrigation system, agro-processing machines, and other equipment without the burden of high upfront cost. The authority announced plans to deepen its partnership with Hi-Fi International, Nigeria, through a new youth enterprising lensing initiative aimed at improving access to finance, productive access, and business support. The Minister of State for Agriculture and Food Security also urged young farmers to embrace modern technologies, including artificial intelligence, drone technology, and precision farming. Now, the event, Kelechi Oluka, founder of Kiyoko Foods Limited, emerged winner of the 2026 AYUTE Nigerian Challenge, receiving a $20,000 grant. The competition supports young agrotech entrepreneurs with funding, mentorship, and opportunities to scale their businesses. The Central Bank of Nigeria says the country's external reserve has risen to $52.52 billion, enough to cover about 11 months of import, as the Monetary Policy Committee retained the benchmark interest rate at 26.5%. Now, the CBN Governor, Yemi Cardoso, says the increase in reserve was driven by high crude oil-related tax receipts and third-party inflows. He also announced that the committee retained the cash reserve requirement for banks and left other key monetary policy parameters unchanged. Now, Cardoso says headline inflation eased slightly to 15.91% in June from 15.93% in May, while core inflation also declined due to exchange rate stability. However, food inflation increased to 17.52%, reflecting ongoing supply constraint. Now, the CBN governor odds the Nigerian economy grew by 3.89% in the first quarter of 2026, supported mainly by the non-oil sector. It says growth is expected to remain resilient, while inflation is projected to ease further through escalating tensions in the Middle East remain a key risk to economic outlook. With that economic news, we need to go on a break now, but when we come back, more news as it concerns the foreign scene and sport. Join us again.
Don't miss out on exciting news, events, and more. Stay connected by following us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Atlantic Media and TV.
Atlantic TV.
Every year, millions of lives are stolen, dreams cut short, futures traded in silence. Human trafficking is a modern-day slavery. It hides in plain sight, tearing families apart entrapping the vulnerable in fear. But together we can end it. Together we can protect, we can rescue, and we can give hope. Say no to exploitation. Say no to slavery. Say no to human trafficking. Powered by Atlantic Media and TV.
Behind closed doors, too many suffer in silence. Too many lives are scarred by violence in the very place that should bring peace, the home. Domestic violence is not love. It is pain. It breaks trust, destroys lives and families, and steals futures. Domestic violence is not a private matter. It's a violation of dignity, and it must end. Because hitting a woman does not make you a man, but correcting her in love and staying in peace with her is God's plan. Together, we can raise our voices, protect the vulnerable, and rebuild lives. Say no to silence. Say no to fear. Say no to domestic violence. Powered by Atlantic Media and TV.
On the foreign scene, the United Nations Refugee Agency says more than 140 refugees and migrants are dead or missing after a boat traveling from Gambia to Europe became stranded off the coast of Mauritania. Now, the vessel drifted at sea for 25 days before it was rescued on July the 18th. It arrived at the port carrying about 38 survivors and several bodies. Now, among the survivors were 2 children who lost their entire family during the journey and are receiving treatment in hospital. Mauritania authorities said the boat ran out of fuel after departing for about 160 people on board, while the UNHCR described the Atlantic route to Spain, Canary Island as one of the world's deadliest migration corridors. The United Nations Agency is calling for greater access to education, jobs, and safe migration pathway to reduce the number of people risking dangerous sea crossing in search of a better life. The United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio has warned the Southeast Asian nations that allowing Iran to control the Strait of Hormuz could threaten global freedom of navigation and disrupt international trade. Now, speaking to leaders of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, Rubio said such a development could set a dangerous precedent for other strategic waterways around the world. Now, he stressed the importance of keeping vital shipping routes open and secure. Now, the Strait of Hormuz is one of the world's busiest oil transit routes, with a significant share of global crude oil and liquefied natural gas export passing through the narrow waterway.
And I think the global economy is to create a precedent in the Middle East where a nation state can decide that they are going to control an international waterway, charge a toll, and if you don't pay them, blow up your ships. We have created a very dangerous precedent which will repeat itself in other parts of the world, including in this region. So what is at stake here is not simply the issue of what's happening in the Straits of Hormuz. There's a very fundamental principle about freedom of navigation. And if that is threatened, then I think the global economy is threatened, and the rules which have underpinned 150 years of international trade and commerce are also threatened. And that cannot be allowed to create a precedent.
Rubio's remarks come amid heightened tension in the Middle East and growing international concern over the security of global energy supplies and maritime trade routes. In the ever-exciting world of sport, Nigerian under-20 team, the Flying Eagles, have arrived in Cote d'Ivoire ahead of the 2026 WAFU B Under-20 Championship, where they will begin the defense of their regional title. Now, the defending champions landed in Abidjan before traveling to the host city of Yamoussoukro, where they are campaigning ahead of the tournament. Nigeria will open its campaign against Ghana Black Starlets on Monday in a repeat of the 2024 final, while the Flying Eagles won 2-1. Now, Coach Aliou Zubeiru's side will then take on Kong Togo before facing Burkina Faso in their final Group B match as they bid to reach the knockout stage. Now, the Flying Eagles are aiming to retain the Waffle B title as part of their preparation for future Continental Championship. And the president of Spanish La Liga, Java Tabes, has criticized FIFA over the decision to expand the 2030 FIFA World Cup to 64 teams, accusing the World Footballing governing body of damaging the global football industry. Now, in an interview with an Italian sport newspaper, he described FIFA's plan as irresponsible, arguing that expanding the tournament will place greater pressure on football calendar and threaten domestic league that sustain the sport year-round. Now, Tabas also said FIFA President Gianni Infantino's time at the helm of the world football is over, claiming the organization's current leadership have made decisions that undermine the interests of clubs, leagues, and thousands of workers in the football industry. FIFA is considering the expansion as part of celebration marking the World Cup's centenary in 2030. Now, the tournament will be hosted mainly by Spain, Portugal, and Morocco, with Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay staging selected marches. Well, anyway, with that sporting news, we'll come to the end of the news right here on Atlantic TV. I remain Michael Gobadia. God bless you. Have a good day. Bye.